is that you don't have as much time to focus on the foundation because you're putting out fires and there's fire drills, there's all kinds of stuff happening, and there's people that want you to work on internal projects specifically right now. You can do that, but make sure that you also focus on the foundation. And don't let all the distractions hamper you from working on the foundation, because that's the only way you're going to be successful. So I list, you can choose your own internal projects. I've just got some buckets here. Scope and prioritize your internal web app specific projects. Increase security awareness, which you should be doing consistently. Threat modeling and data flow diagrams, totally awesome stuff. But don't let them distract you right away from all the foundational items. But if you can start those right away, it would help you. Manual code reviews. There was some discussion among my peers about whether manual code review should be on the foundation piece and above the line. And what I'm basically saying is that you may not receive the benefit of a manual code review for a few months down the road or a few release cycles down the road. So what I'm trying to offer in the building a foundation is how you can get the most immediate bang for your time and effort. And there's other possible roadmap items to consider, which I'll talk about later as well. So find web application vulnerabilities. You'll see in the bottom right corner there, I've got build a foundation that just lets you know that we're still talking about the foundation, about the above the white line tasks. If you're finding web application vulnerabilities, you'd recognize there's going to be an automated component and a manual component. This basically advertises the fact that web application security is still so much in its infancy. You're not going to be able to get away with just automatic only. You're going to have a manual piece, because only a person's going to be able to do logic errors and other errors inside of a web application that a scanner is not going to be able to find for you. But in terms of automated component, it's critical that you find the automated web security assessment or scanner or whatever you want to call it. Make sure that you find the one that's correct for your environment. If you're .NET, there tends to be scanners that work better for Microsoft environments. If you're a J2EE, there tends to be scanners that work better for those environments. There's even some SaaS offerings as well coming into the market, and you also have White Hat and some other SaaS offerings. Make sure you're addressing all internet-facing web applications. This is huge. You may have a community site that's soliciting customers, and they can go through there, and you're not addressing that, but if someone hacks the community site, maybe they can do a phishing attack on your users, or maybe they can scrape email addresses off of the community site. So make sure that you understand all your total internet exposure. Every custom web app that you have, you need to make sure that you're addressing all of your internet exposure through all of your web apps, not just your production web app, maybe some legacy web apps as well too. So your solution needs to include and address all of your internet exposure. Deploy a static source code analysis tool, and we'll talk about the vendors available there, because that'll allow for some visibility into the actual changes that need to be made into the source code. I mentioned briefly about the manual component, but you just can't get around the fact that the manual component it's something you're going to have to deal with. Either you're going to be looking at the assessment tool, and you're going to be vetting it and looking for false positives. The last thing you want to do is have the assessment tool spit out all of these pages and pages of vulnerabilities to your developers, and they're going to lose respect for you if you have so many false positives. You have to make sure that you vet that correctly and that you prioritize what you ask them to do. So there's going to be a manual component to all of this. And whoever's doing the manual assessment piece needs to understand the application functions and the logic and how the application flows. Make sure that if you haven't already done so, that you integrate a peer code review and a manual review, probably as you're checking in. Usually, most companies already have this, but if you're checking in code, make sure that a peer reviews it. These are all basically manual components that you can add to the assessment process. So here I flesh out some of the assessment vendors. AppScan used to be what we call Watchfire. Now I think IBM has them as Rational AppScan. Core Impact has a product called Core Security. Hailstorm has Sensic. NT Objectives has, Sensic has Hailstorm. NT Objectives has NTO Spider. WebInspect You probably all remember it as Spy Dynamics, but now that's under HP. And we have White Hat Sentinel, which is the SaaS offering that maybe you're most familiar with. Static source code analysis vendors, there's a handful out there: Fortify, Ounce, and Veracode. I believe at least 2 of those 3 I saw in the vendor section downstairs. I'm hoping this slide actually adds the most value to you, because this is something that, in talking to my colleagues and my peers, we tried to flesh out what expectations should be in terms of a bake-off. If you are baking off assessment tools, you'll see 30 days pretty much standard for any bake-off. You can conduct multiple vendor assessments at the same time. It's going to be, it'll probably take up most of your time if you're conducting multiple assessments at the same time, but you may want to just take 30 days and just assess as many tools as you can. Once you define a tool that works for you, 0 to 4 weeks to deploy the tool. If you need to, if you're concerned about CapEx for capital expenditure, if you're trying to manage expectations for on the budget side of things, throw $25,000 to $50,000 in there if you're looking for a vendor solution. It's just rough estimates, but again, what you don't want to do is come in late in the game and say, this is, what you want to do is you always want to say it's going to cost more than it actually costs. This is what I've learned over my years, right? So you don't want to come in late in the game and say, okay, we budgeted this much and it's going to cost more. So you want to come in higher and then come in lower than expected. So you never want to give them a number that's too low. The static source code analysis piece, this is actually pricey if you're looking for a vendor solution. 30 days to evaluate each of the vendors. Deploying these tools can get kind of tricky. 3 to 6 weeks, I think, is a conservative estimate. And I'm offering here in the last bullet that you really need to think about who's going to be managing the source code analysis tool. Historically, I've managed expectations here by saying that you really need one person almost dedicated to the source code analysis piece. So you need to budget at least for an FTE or pull someone off of something else as well, aside from the cost of the tool itself. And so $1,000 to $3,000 per developer. These tools can get really expensive. It just depends on how many of the different pieces of the tool that you end up buying. Okay, we're into addressing the vulnerabilities now. Absolutely, the most important piece here is to block the immediate exposure as fast as you can. Once you find something, you need to block it as fast as you can. There's ways of blocking it without having to fix it in the code level. If you find 100 vulnerabilities, 100 cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, it's going to take a long time to divert the developer's attention away from their current activities to address those. So just make sure that you're working to address your vulnerabilities as fast as you can. Web Application Firewall, I submit, will actually help you in this regard. If you find the correct web application firewall that's correct for your environment, it will buy you the time to more, not necessarily leisurely, but to fix the source code within the constraints of your developer's current schedule. So in theory, it blocks the exposure in the web app, and it buys you more time to fix it at the code level. After you've blocked the immediate exposure, then you can start looking a little deeper and trying to actually fix the code level pieces.